Hello there, friends. Welcome back to another episode of Generation Tech. My name is Alan, and recently I received some leaked footage of a scene from the second season of Andor, and I gotta say, I was really pleasantly surprised because it features a character I didn't realize was gonna come back, and he's one of my favorite characters from the first season of Andor, and it's probably not a character you guys would think about. He's kind of a minor character. Talking about Sergeant Linus Mosk, who at the end of Andor Season 1 was seen sitting dejected on the ground after the Ferrix riot turned into a massacre. I actually thought it was very interesting to see Mosk in that scene. Unexpected, maybe is the better word, because he's kind of sandwiched in a really important montage. Before Mosk's scene of him sitting on the ground dejectedly, we watch Mon Mothma give away her daughter to the loan shark. And then after Mosk's scene, we see Luthen Rael riding away with Andor. This didn't make sense to me because, let's be honest, Luthen Rael and Mon Mothma are very important to the show. They are going to be huge players in the second season of Andor. They're going to start the rebellion. Whereas Linus Mosk, as much as I love him, well, I thought he was done after their first operation on Ferrix, which ended up turning into a firefight, which killed several Morlana 1 security personnel and just, created all sorts of chaos that attracted Imperial attention. Even though it was Cyril Karn who got them into this mess in the first place, Linus Mosk was kind of like the senior officer when it comes to experience, and so more was expected out of him. And so when the ISB was sent to take over their operations and shut down Morlana 1 security, both Linus Mosk and Cyril Karn would shoulder the blame for the disastrous operation together.
It took the combined ingredients of idiocy, ineptitude, and total disengagement for this farce to have reached the full apex of incredulous disaster. Seriously?
And so I was already very pleasantly surprised to see Linus Mosk again at the end of the first season. And now that I know that he's going to be in the second season, I'm exhilarated, Because usually when you screw up like this in front of the ISB, they will blacklist you from every, security role in the galaxy, whether it's a corporate gig or something for the Empire. Linus Mosk, however, knows how to survive, and he adapts, and he begins working in an ore refinery smelter on Morlana 1, which is connected to a larger mining operation. It's here he actually gets info from an old partner he used to serve with that the situation on Ferrix was escalating after the death of local leader Marva Andor, which is what prompts Mosk to call Cyril Karn and reopen their previous investigation on Cassian Andor. The Empire is honestly lucky to have men like Cyril and Linus, two passionate young men who are willing to hunt down the Empire's enemies on their own time and dollar. Or at least Linus Mosk was, because not only was I surprised to see Linus Mosk in Season 2 Andor footage, I was also surprised to see who he was talking to. This is something I did not expect. It's Luthen Rael, and yes, both of these individuals are completely different in appearance as these scenes take place many years after what happened on Ferrix. I think for Luthen Rael, changing your appearance is really just a part of the job, right? Now, in the scene, it's very clear that Luthen Rael is starting a new operation. He's trying to infiltrate some kind of Imperial facility. I think it potentially could be the one where Cassian Andor steals that state-of-the-art TIE fighter. Luckily, this Imperial facility is next to a Dunium mine. Dunium is a material that is used for all sorts of shielding and high-end kind of shipbuilding. It's used on the Death Star, for instance. As such, Luthen Rael and a new unnamed character discuss how they're going to convince a group of miners to dig a tunnel from the Dunium mine all the way to the Imperial facility so that they could break in. The hard part, of course, is convincing the miners to do something as crazy as this without actually letting them know what they're up to.
Have you ever spent time with miners? No. My advice, tell the truth. These men work in the dark.
That is a classic Luthen Rael line. Anyway, I also really love the color palette in these scenes. It reminds me a lot of Ferrix, a little more grim than Ferrix. Maybe Ferrix is pretty colorful, but it's in that same earthy, natural kind of color tone. You can see it all over the clothing as well. I also really like how the gadgets look here. They're really weathered. The whole office they're in looks pieced together. Again, it reminds me a lot of Ferrix. It's makeshift. It's not exactly post-apocalyptic, but it's clear that this is not a very well put together society. So what I think we're actually looking at here is a lower tech primitive world, which actually existed in the Star Wars galaxy just like it, exists in the Warhammer galaxy. There are a lot of worlds that were either isolated or just ignored by the rest of the galaxy, and yeah, they were pretty low tech. Captain Phasma is actually from such a world, as was the main character from Twilight Company, one of my favorite Star Wars novels. And so you do have worlds in Star Wars that are stuck in the Stone Age and have very limited modern technology, and still trying to figure out things like advanced agriculture and metallurgy. I think it's super exciting that we're finally visiting a world like this in live action. I mean, it's been hinted about in a lot of the books, both in canons and legends, but I'm excited to see this. Anyway, shortly after Luthen and his new underling converse, Linus Mosk enters the room, a few years older, but looking far more confident and far more in charge. I'm going to guess in the beginning of the season 2 of Andor, we're going to get a few more scenes of Linus Mosk after the Ferrix riot goes out of control. We've already seen what his partner Cyril Karn goes through. He saves ISB agent Dedra Meero, who technically was in charge of the entire garrison on Ferrix. Even though she royally screwed up, her posting, she still has some power, and now she's indebted to Cyril. The problem is, it seems like our tenacious inspector has forgotten his trusty sidekick back on Ferrix and kept all the glory for himself. And that's not cool. I mean, they switched hats with each other, right? I mean, that has to mean something. And so, yeah, Linus Mosk grew disillusioned by the Empire, like a lot of people do. He sacrificed his career, he put himself in danger for the Empire, and they just ridiculed him. They laughed at him. They didn't do anything for him. And so why would he serve the Empire anymore? And so he's forgotten Andor, and now he's working as a miner, right? He's gone from the processing center on Morlana 1 to becoming a foreman of a mine. Linus Mosk might be a joke to some people. He might be a tactical blueberry, but, he's actually not a terrible leader. I mean, say what you want about the first Ferrix incident, but Linus Mosk does care for the men, and I think this is why they ultimately respect him. And this makes him natural for leadership, especially a leader of rough and tough men. Security officers, miners, it's a very masculine profession. And as a suspicious foreman to a group of miners, he starts questioning these rebels about what exactly they're up to. And here's how the conversation starts.
Do these work? To an extent.
And here's how the conversation ends.
If these worked, you'd be wearing them.
Yeah, as you can see, Linus Mosk is done letting higher-ranking, less experienced officers tell him and his men what to do. He's probably thought a lot about what happened on Ferrix ever since that incident, and he came to the conclusion that Cyril Karn led his men into disaster, and that blindly trusting the young inspector was a terrible idea. It's clear he's a far more cynical and careful individual. This was definitely not the character development that I was expecting in season 2 of Andor. I was focused on other things, but hey man, if the tactical blueberries are back, I don't really care in what form. I just want to see them. I mean, the real question is, if Linus Mosk figures out what Luthen Royale and his rebels are doing, will he betray the rebels, or is he truly just neutral now? He doesn't care about the Empire at all. Who knows? Oh, and April Fools, by the way. I'll see you guys next time.